Good morning and welcome, everyone. It's so good to see familiar faces and faces we haven't seen in a while. Welcome, dear friends, to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. My name is Barbara Rosen, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. I use she, her pronouns, and am a white older woman with green eyes, clothing which is orange and brown today. We want to acknowledge that here at the church, we're on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. We're a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, uutarpon.org, or we'd be happy to talk with you during the coffee hour. For those present with us in the building, we have connection cards near the hymnals in the pews that you can fill out, and we'll know how to get in touch with you. We also have small cards that are for joys and sorrows if you would like to share one and prefer to do it in writing. Reverend Kristina and Greg Rosasco will give their thoughts and ideas during the sermon this morning. Our first piece of music is Here We Have Gathered, number 360 in the gray hymnal.
I was in Clearwater last week and had to use a standing mic, and so I'm so grateful this week to be back with a lapel mic and I can speak freely with my hands. I am the Reverend Kristina Spaude. I use she, her pronouns and am a white woman. I am tall with almost shoulder-length curly brown hair, parted on one side, and blue eyes. Our opening words this morning come from my colleague, the Reverend Erica Hewitt. This is These Bodies, These Blessings. Holy One, you knit me together in my mother's womb. This is the voice of Psalm 139. I was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Let us remember and celebrate this morning that each of our bodies was woven together in the depths of mystery. Cells multiplying, tissue taking form, organs taking up their function, all under the silky cover of skin. Let us gather in reverence for the gift of these bodies, whatever their ages, their shapes, their abilities, and may we know them to be channels of the world coming alive through us. These bodies, these blessings bring the world to life through seeing, taste, hearing, scent, and touch. May we bring to our intricately woven bodies a sense of sacred caretaking. In doing so, let us be grateful for the embrace of the holy, the presence that creates and sustains life, the mystery that knits together each of our bodies, and the force of love that celebrates our desires. Come, let us worship together. Alex.
Alex is our chalice lighter this morning. We light our chalice with these words from Paul Specher. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. And now we will sing Spirit of Life, number 123 in the gray hymnal.
Our story this morning is The Minister Who Was a Scientist, Joseph Priestley's Search for the Truth by Betsy Hill Williams in You and Me Collected Stories. Before I get started, I want to say that I wish I had pictures. I lived 3 blocks, I think, south of where Joseph Priestley's house still stands in Northumberland. When people ask where I lived in Northumberland, I always say you don't know where it is because that's how most of Pennsylvania is. But this tiny town of Northumberland, 1,700 community members, is where Joseph Priestley spent the last 10-ish years of his life, and he has a house that is full of all of his wondrous inventions and curiosities, and they offer an excellent tour. If you ever find yourself up there, it is worth going to see. I learned so much, and I usually get bored going to those things. Do you know what most people like best about the drinks like Coca-Cola or Sprite? They like the bubbles. the fizz. And it was a Unitarian minister in England, Joseph Priestley, who experimented with gases in his laboratory and made the very first fizzy drinks. It's hard to imagine a minister messing around in a science lab. Clearly, the author and I do not know the same ministers. But that's just what Priestley did back in the mid-1700s. He was a curious person who asked a lot of questions. He had questions about how things worked in the universe, and he had questions about religion too. To Priestley, the things that science taught us about the world and the things that religion taught us about the world could not be separated from each other. Priestley thought that they were both important, and he could see that both were always changing as human beings had new experiences and new ideas. This was a very different way of thinking, especially for a minister. In fact, in those days, it was against the law to believe things that were different from what the Church of England taught people about religion. The Church of England taught that Jesus was the Son of God and that all beings are born sinful. But Priestley liked to study things when he had questions about them. He wasn't sure that he believed that Jesus was the Son of God, and so he studied the Bible. He decided that a person could believe that Jesus was a wonderful teacher without believing that he was the Son of God and was sent to earth to save sinful people. Joseph Priestley had lots of questions about animals and plants and gases too. His questions led him to study and perform experiments that helped him to discover some important things about science that you learn in school today. He is considered the person who discovered oxygen, for example. It was pretty hard in those days to believe that things that were different from what everybody else believed. The Unitarian churches where Priestley found work as a minister were always small and poor, and they were often attacked by people who were afraid of his ideas. For a few years, Priestley left church work and started his own school. In Priestley's school, students were taught to ask questions about everything and to work on their own ideas and experiments. His ideas about education, just like his ideas about religion, were very different from what was normal at the time. Although some people thought his teaching was very good, the school never made enough money to support his family, and so it closed. Finally, in 1773, Priestley got a job as a librarian and family tutor for the Earl of Shelburne, a very wealthy man. The Earl liked Priestley and gave him space and money to do his experiments. During his years with the Earl's family, Priestley wrote many books about air, electricity, and even about drawing. In his writing, he always told the whole story of his experiments, the mistakes he made, as well as the successes. Priestley was more interested in finding the truth in both religion and science than in proving that his ideas were right. When his job with the Earl ended, Priestley took another job as a minister, this time in a church where people agreed with his religious ideas. He was very happy there for about 10 years, but the fighting between the traditional church leaders and the new ones got worse until finally Priestley's house, church, library, and science laboratory were burned to the ground by an angry mob. Priestley and his wife barely escaped. Shortly after that, they moved to the United States, where Priestley's grown-up sons had already gone to start a new community in Pennsylvania. The Priestleys settled in the small town of Northumberland, about a 5-day trip at the time from Philadelphia. It took 4 years for Priestley to build his house, and it was even longer before he had a scientific laboratory to work in again. During these years, Priestley traveled multiple times to Philadelphia to help set up a Unitarian congregation. The church wanted him to be their minister, but he always returned to Northumberland. And although he never took a job as a Unitarian minister in the United States, we remember him as a founder of Unitarianism in America because of his work in the Philadelphia church. Priestley spent the last years of his life doing experiments and writing about the history of Christianity. Science and religion were always the two great interests in his life until he died in January 1804 at the age of 70. We will sing our children to their programming with Jami and Anahis. It is hymn number 413 in the gray hymnal, Go Now in Peace. And as we do so, I will light this chalice flame to remind them of our love.
The purpose in our church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and action. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. This month, the Social Justice Council is asking for donations for MLK Jr. Scholarship Foundation. For those at the church, there are plain envelopes in the pews if you wish to donate cash, and you can write your name on the envelope if you'd like. For those at home, please do so. Go to our website, uutarpon.org, click on the Donate button, and select Social Justice Give the Plate. Our next music is called Gathered Here, number 389 in the gray hymnal.
This is a round, so we will be singing it one time through all together, and then we will break up into parts, but just 2 parts. You see the little numbers there, so we're just going to have part 1 and part 2. Part 2 sings the same thing as part 1 did, but they're just late in starting.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour,
Before our brief moment of silence, these words that you might want to reflect on or offer as a prayer for peace throughout the world. This is Creator by Jennifer Pratt Walter. We are all infinitesimal stitches knit into the shawl of God. Her needles piece the mystery of the universe, how source arises from itself. Let your wonder take flight at the sharp miracle of breathing. Inhale, you are creation. Exhale, you are creator. We will now hold a brief moment of silence to allow you to settle into yourselves and your seats. You might take a few breaths deep into your belly if that is comfortable for you. Our reading this morning comes from Carol Hapakowski, A Strong Reverence for Life, from Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism. Those of us who call ourselves religious humanists have a strong reverence for life. Many of us experience a deep sense of awe before the mystery of life and death, those powers greater than ourselves. We share a respect for science and reason, and we are willing to live with ambiguity, to live without definitive answers. We share a deep concern about injustice and the fate of human life, indeed, of all life on this planet, our home in the universe. We identify with the human story, even as we recognize it as intimately tied to the story of the rest of the world. My environmentalism and my humanism are inextricably related. My humanism tells me that human life is important and worthy of respect and care. My environmentalism tells me that to be human is to be part of an interdependent circle of all life. It is counterproductive to imagine ourselves as separate. My knowledge of today's world informs me that planet Earth and thus human life are in danger because of the threat of global warming. I want to see life, including human life, preserved and thriving on our planet. My environmental humanism compels me to work to reduce the causes of climate change, the human practices that threaten the survival of the earth.
placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself.
You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should.
Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in a sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself.
You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should.
And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy.
You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should.
Earlier this year, I solicited some of our congregants about doing services with me and sent out the monthly themes, and Greg was very eager to participate in a conversation on mystery. So that is what we are doing this morning. We initially went with a science-y religion combination, and then he shifted gears on me and went more philosophical, theological, I think that's where we landed. We'll find out together. It'll be a surprise. Yeah. It's always interesting to watch how a service develops over the course of time, so I'm grateful for this.
Thank you. I should introduce myself. My name is Greg Rosasco. I'm a tall-ish, old, white male, mostly brown hair, and by the way, I'm wearing something red around my neck. It's called a tie. Because we probably haven't seen many of these in recent years. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, definitely, mystery has always been a very big part of my life. Mystery is what we can't really readily understand, things that seem to need an explanation. So this goes way back I'm going to do this sort of chronologically. In my early childhood in the 1940s, when I spent hours perusing a pictorial book owned by my dad, which has the title of something like How Things Work. It explored natural phenomena such as sea and land breezes and technology, for example, steam versus diesel locomotives, and propeller-driven planes. Wow, I mean, it was pretty amazing. In the middle 1950s, when my family moved to a dairy farm in northeastern Pennsylvania, I was then challenged by understanding how tractors work and how hay balers worked, mainly because we had to keep them running to do our farm work. Later, I chose to study physics, not engineering, as my college major because of my interest in the fundamental laws describing physical phenomena, especially light. I really am fascinated by light. In my 4 years at a Jesuit college, I added a second major in philosophy and picked up a minor in theology as a part of an honors program. It is no exaggeration to say that the studies in these two latter areas added greatly to the list of things that were hard to understand. Here I refer to the big questions of existence and right behavior. I'll return to these in a bit. As a practicing Roman Catholic, one of my big challenges was that I was often told that the many mysteries, especially the theological mysteries, were inherently beyond understanding, requiring faith-based acceptance. As I prepared for the discussion today, I realized that mystery has played an enormous role in both my career, my religious life, my personal life, struggling with the mysteries of interpersonal relationships, and I am then going to turn to Reverend Kristina and say, would you describe mystery as having played an important role in your life, and which mysteries were the most influential?
I don't think I ever would have described mystery itself as being an important part of my life, but I have always been an inherently very curious person. So it was always wanting to know how things worked, getting into exploration, taking things apart, putting them back together again sometimes. One of my grandfathers is an engineer, and so just having that understanding and wanting to know so many things has always been an important part of my life. That's actually one of the reasons why I studied both history and translation. As an undergrad and as a graduate student, history, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, there's an endless amount of things for me to learn about, which was really exciting. And then translation also really complemented that because, again, and there's just an endless things to know about. For some reason, thinking about this service reminded me of a time that we did a translation piece about the nose. And I learned all this stuff about the nose that I never would have known otherwise. And I was just so excited to be learning stuff. So that has always been a really important part for me. So I guess it was more about the process than it was the outcome.
Okay, I'll return now to return to those big questions I introduced above. To guide my presentation, I asked the AI chatbot on Bing, so now I am in the 21st century, believe it or not. What are the big questions in philosophy? And here's what it said. Philosophy, the pursuit of wisdom and understanding, grapples with profound questions that transcend time and culture. These inquiries delve into the very fabric of existence, morality, and the human experience. Here are some of the big philosophical questions that have captivated thinkers across generations. It first listed what it termed metaphysical questions, and it listed 3. Where did we come from? Why are we here, and how should we live? And third one is there hope for our future and life after death? It also added what they termed questions about human nature and behavior. Number 1, it listed what is the difference between good and bad people? And second was, is it essential to be a good person? And then it went on to list another 7 or so. I am very grateful that I was exposed to these deeply meaningful questions during my Jesuit education. Their importance has remained with me throughout my life. So, here's what I'm going to ask Reverend Kristina. Do you see these as sort of the big, important questions? Would you modify the list in important ways, or delete something, or add something?
So I do think, I love that these were the questions that it came back with. That's part of the reason why I chose the music before we finalized and got to this part. So Gathered Here, that we sang just a few moments ago, where do we come from? Where are we going? Those are core questions about what the experience of being human. So yes, absolutely. It was interesting to me a little bit about the question about the hope for the future and life after death. As a good Unitarian Universalist, I don't really think about life after death, as part of my experience, but I know that is a big question for a lot of people. So it was interesting to see that had been added. I think it is a natural question for us to wonder about those, because obviously no one knows. But as a Unitarian Universalist, I don't invest a lot of energy in reflecting on that. The questions about human nature and behavior. So as I've said before, I was raised unchurched. I was kind of left to my own devices. We went to services on Christmas Eve. We went to different services sometimes when we went, actually on Easter. We went to different churches when we went to Easter services than we did to Christmas Eve services. And the rest of the time, I was just left to my own devices. My family does not, I still, at this age, cannot tell you what my parents believe theologically. Or my sister, none of my family, we don't talk about any of that stuff. So for me, the core questions about what was important when I was growing up was, how do I be a good person? And how do I live a life that reflects the things that I hold of value? So absolutely, those are really, really good questions. And I don't think there's anything that I would really add to them at this point.
I have a deeply rooted desire, actually maybe it's even a need, for a coherent, intelligible understanding of the big questions of philosophy, consistent with my personal experience and with secular understandings of history, psychology, interpersonal relationships, and science. More simply, that my view of the world and my life is a coherent one. Would you say you suffer from a similar obsession?
Yes. And I think that anybody who seeks to live a life of value and meaning is going to be interested in those questions. I certainly know that our therapists here have helped clients, patients with working through those kinds of questions, as well as people who have been in therapy, always trying to seek, like, how do I live my life in a way that really more clearly reflects the values that I hold, really reflects the meaning that I'm seeking to have in my life. So I definitely think that that's an important part of the human journey.
Do you think it's an important part to try to transmit in your ministerial preaching and in the philosophy of our Unitarian Universalist faith?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why we gather every week, right? We're trying to find what it means to be human and to do it together and to explore these big questions, and understanding that I don't have all the answers. I'm just the one that's up here right now speaking, but that's why we invite other people to participate in these conversations. This is why we invite other guest people. Lay ministry has always been a really important part of Unitarianism and Universalism long before we merged together. And so I do think it's really important to have lots of voices to engage in that conversation, because this is what it means. This is what it means for all of us. That question of why are we here? What are we doing? We answer that by being together.
Little confessional material coming here. Over the many years since college, while deeply engaged with my career and active for about 20 years as an ELCA Lutheran, often working in youth ministry, I had a lot of intellectual and even more so emotional issues stemming from a lack of a desired coherent understanding that I asked that I really wanted to feel. I think it's important to note that this discomfort did not cause me to abandon what I called my faith or dismiss the mysteries that so much surrounded it. But I think that kind of started coming to an end about 13 or 14 years ago, when I encountered Unitarian Universalism and also the failure of my marriage, which occurred in 2010. This leads me to assert that rooting answers to the big questions in the mysteries inherent to the traditional Western creedal religions is a very ineffective, perhaps counterproductive approach. It surely has been my experience. So, do you feel that you like that assertion, or would you like to correct me? Which is fine. I'd be happy to learn that I can be corrected.
So I agree with what you said. For me, being able to have the flexibility and the curiosity and the wonder and the awe which Unitarian Universalism so clearly cultivates for us, I value it very much. And as I said, I met with some lay folks in a gathering last week, and said the same thing that I will always say, is that Unitarian Universalism is not for everyone. We are a seeking people. We want to ask questions and to accept that sometimes there are no answers, and to be okay with that, but also to keep seeking. We want that. We want that meaning. And sometimes that's too much for people. There's not enough clarity. There aren't clear answers. Some people really find that kind of structure very helpful, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and I fully support people. It's not what's best for me. I don't want somebody telling me, I never did catechism school or anything like that, and I think I would have been terrible at it, because it would have been like, what are we doing? Whereas, where I am, I get to ask questions all the time, and everybody thinks it's great. But it's not, I don't think it's for everyone, but it is definitely for me and for you.
Yeah. Well, finally. I have to comment that I took 2 majors and I had a minor in math also. I didn't have a very broad education, however, while I was an undergraduate. There wasn't time. I didn't study history, I didn't study psychology, studied a lot of philosophy. I've really worked hard on that in the last 10 or 12 years. I've got a bunch of teaching company courses, and in fact, I loan them out if anybody wants them. And everything from history, I had no history, oh, no, that's not quite true. I had 1 semester of history American history, that was worse than my grade school teacher. I love it. But I did study a lot. I have studied neuroscience and cosmology and comparative philosophy. And I don't consider myself an expert in neuroscience or moral philosophy, but my study has led me to no longer reverence the thoughts of really smart people who had little or no knowledge of the relevant physics or even an interest in answering the big questions of philosophy without due consideration of the reality of the physical world and what science can tell us about it. Today I am a thoroughgoing physicalist and a philosophical pragmatist. Let me add a pleasant synchronicity in today's service. I think it is great that Reverend Kristina's story, which was going to be when I was going to be doing cosmology, introduced us to a scientist, theologian, and philosopher, Joseph Priestley. And I went out and studied about Joseph Priestley. I learned that he too was a thoroughgoing physicalist who presciently considered cognition, rational thinking, and consciousness as natural functions of material brains. Now that's pretty darn good for an 18th century polymath. He totally bucked the history of mind-body dualism of thinkers from Plato through Aquinas and Newton and Leibniz, Descartes and Kant. Wow, that's pretty cool. No wonder he's a Unitarian Universalist. Oh, well, he wasn't a Unitarian. Let me touch briefly on the behavior-related aspects of the big questions. I emerged from this effort in comparative philosophy as a slightly cynical pragmatist. I say cynical because I find that rationalist philosophy has little effect when it comes to how people, and especially societies, behave. I lean toward David Hume's view. He is a philosopher, but he's one of my favorites. And he's also a realist, a physicalist. There's a view that actions and choices arise from the passions as opposed to rational analysis or the urgings of an immortal soul. Let me clarify what Hume means by passions. I found another description from the Bing AI just to make sure I didn't blow it. Passions for Hume included emotions like desire, aversion, grief, joy, hope, and fear. These feelings arise directly from our experiences and our interactions with the world. Hume also identifies indirect passions, what he calls indirect passions, which include pride, humility, love, and hatred. I see this as consistent with my understanding of the mind as embodied. We are physical, material beings, and our brains and nervous and limbic systems all are at work in every element of our existence, including the conscious and the subconscious mind. Much modern neuroscience is totally consistent with this view. Reverend Kristina, how does UUism address the big question I've just touched on just now? In particular, how do you understand the roots of behavior, especially ethical behavior?
So I want to go back to the description of the passions, and I have to say that when I was first reading this, I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. And I was watching a show and they were talking about free will and how nothing is ever, like free will is not as free as we think it is because it's always guided by context, it's always guided by what we're thinking, what we're feeling at the time. And then I was watching another show and something happened and this person was like, oh, that's so funny, ha ha ha. And then something happened that made them like have a really sour mood and they were like, stop doing that. And I was just like, oh, like, yep, that is essentially what it is to be human, right? Like we think that everything is just guided by whatever thoughts and feelings that we want to manifest in the world, but we're really impacted by the things that are happening around us. And that really can impact the way that we respond to things, the way that we engage with things. And so I think that there is a lot more of the passions involved in what it means to be human as we navigate life than I wanted to give it credit for. As far as Unitarian Universalism goes, I think that we make space for that, for our emotions, for our feelings, for our expressions, more freely, perhaps, than other religions might, in that we're covenantal. We expect to be in relationship. We expect that things are going to go well for periods of time and that things are going to be bumpy at other periods of time. But the idea of always returning and coming back into covenant by being in relationship with one another allows space for us to just be ourselves, to be human, and continue working that commitment to being in relationship, coming back to the table when things go wrong. I think the question about ethical behavior is probably more than I have time to get into right now.
Understand. Well, I want to comment that I've talked about the 7 principles, how they were a big deal for me when I joined, and we had fun talking about that. But the thing that really sticks out for me is that we have covenanted since our beginning in the 1600s, that we're going to work this out together. We're not going to have anybody tell us what it is. We're going to experience it and come together and help each other. And I learned that from Barbara Kristina, actually, because she did the men's lectures, which really told me.
And what we agree to is going to change over time. So what we agreed to in the 1600s is not inherently what we agree to now, but we're going to keep taking that journey together.
We're not originalists. And just a postscript here that if I don't want to, if you had a hunger for some cosmology, after this session, I have some slides that I will show on the big screen, and we will talk about how we got here in terms of from the Big Bang to here. We have lots of great theories, and I'd be happy to share them with you. They're my passion, although I never did that kind of work. But it all started when I was in graduate school in 1965, when Wilson and Penzias, 2 Bell Lab scientists, discovered the cosmic microwave background. They didn't know what the hell it was, but they discovered it. So that's the way science is. It's cool. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. If you would please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 1064, in the teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
And if you feel like standing, please do. If you feel like just staying seated, that is fine too.
In The Gift of Faith, Jean Harrison Newyer has written, in the lore of ancient China, there's a story of a philosopher who was asked, where is the road called hope? He replied, it does not exist, but as people move upon it, it comes into being. I invite you to continue moving forward on this path, this journey of mystery and hope with me.
I may have to borrow someone's page 4. Mine seemed to disappear. Thank you.
We are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We are all spirit to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced on the brink of wisdom. I am patient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection will be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live inside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
On this road through thoughts and feelings, binding intuition, my head and heart, I am gathering the tools together. I am preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side.
We are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live inside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance on the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
We are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that live inside.
Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
We hope you found meaning in today's service. We close with these words from Rolf Gerhard. We extinguish this flame, a mere wisp of matter in process, almost as insubstantial as the thought of it. Yet our civilization has harnessed the power of such a flame to drive and shape a new world. So may it be with the power of our thoughts, that in truth and love they may drive and shape a new world.